Recognize Chairman Díaz-Balart to present the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I'm pleased to present the fiscal year 2026 National Security, Department of State, and Related Programs Appropriations Bill to the full committee for consideration and for approval. Let me start by thanking Chairman Cole for his essential leadership at the helms of this Appropriations Committee and for his, what I believe is deep wisdom, Mr. Chairman, in refocusing this subcommittee, starting by changing the name to really better reflect the investments made on behalf of the American people, that they are to advance U.S. national security. I also want to thank Ranking Member Frankel and Ranking Member DeLauro and all of the members of the subcommittee for your partnership in developing this important bill. The bill before us delivers on President Trump's America First agenda. First, we drastically reduced spending by cutting 22% from the enacted level. The greatest threat to our country's stability and security is our debt. And this bill decisively but responsibly reins in spending. Now, these cuts are in addition to the 6% cut achieved in the final enacted version of the fiscal year 24 State and Foreign Operations Act, which was carried, as you all know, in the CR, in the continuing resolution. Within the remaining funds, this bill prioritizes our national security, especially, I may add, in the Western Hemisphere, the Middle East, and the Indo-Pacific. It provides unwavering support for Israel and fully funds the United States-Israel Memorandum of Understanding by providing $3.3 billion in security assistance to allow Israel to defend herself from existential threats. Other key partners, other key allies in the Middle East, such as Egypt and Jordan, are strongly supported as well. The bill includes funding and conditions to confront the national security threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party, including through a new provision that prohibits support for academic institutions partnering in STEM programs with PRC or CCP-controlled colleges in communist China. And it continues to prohibit foreign assistance from being used to repay loans to the PRC and many other key limitations on funding regarding the PRC. We have $500 million in foreign military finance, and up to $2 billion in loans and loan guarantees are provided for Taiwan to strengthen deterrence across the Taiwan Straits. Strong support is also provided for other key partners in the Indo-Pacific, such as the Philippines and Pacific Island countries. This bill continues important investments, Mr. Chairman, to combat the trafficking of fentanyl and the transnational criminal organizations behind that scourge of drug addiction confronting every single community in the United States of America. The bill creates the America First Opportunity Fund, which will enhance our country's leverage abroad and enable a rapid response to any crisis. It also creates the National Security Investment Programs account, a new account that facilitates efficient, strategic deployment of programs that support the United States national security interest. Yes, that is the theme. That is the theme of this bill. Together, this realignment of resources ensures that our foreign policy is focused on making Americans safer, stronger, and more prosperous. Critically important, Mr. Chairman, and members of this committee, the bill maintains all longstanding pro-life provisions alongside enhanced oversight and transparency, measures to ensure that American taxpayer dollars do not fund abortions, a policy that Americans overwhelmingly support. This bill, my friends, makes very clear that the days of a weak American foreign policy, those days are over. Funding is cut, conditioned, or withheld to countries that are no longer advancing shared interests, such as Colombia, due to the Petro administration's abject failures in preventing political violence, creating economic deterioration, and emboldening transnational criminals. South Africa, unless it ceases cooperations with our adversaries and upholds the rule of law. And Mexico, until it meets the requirements on water deliveries to the United States in accordance with the terms of the 1944 Water Treaty. The bill also blocks assistance to anyone that supports, finances, facilitates the operations of the Cuban Ministry of the Revolutionary Armed Forces or Ministry of Interior. By the way, I'm also really grateful to President Trump and Secretary Rubio because they used language that I included in the fiscal year 2024 bill to sanction anti-American thugs in the Cuban regime who work closely with America's adversaries. This bill demands unprecedented accountability of the United Nations and other international organizations. It brings greater scrutiny to the actions of member states, including their voting record at the United Nations in determining the allocation of funds. That, frankly, doesn't sound like it should be controversial, but it's about time that we do that. No funds are included for the United Nations regular budget, and funds are prohibited to the World Health Organization, the United Nations Commission of Inquiry against Israel, the United Nations Relief and Work Agency known as UNRWA, the United Nations Human Rights Council, the International Criminal Court, and the International Court of Justice. Furthermore, the bill includes a new provision to demand justice for the victims murdered in the October 7th terrorist attack, including American citizens, by requiring full accountability for the UNRWA staff involved in this vicious, cowardly attack. So these are just, my friends, a few examples of how this bill strengthens our national security and supports an America First foreign policy. But there's more. The bill prohibits funds for controversial or ineffective programs that Americans do not support and our allies and partners don't need. The bill supports full implementation of key Trump administration executive orders that reflect a clear commitment to national sovereignty, secure borders, limited government, and American values, including those related to restoring free speech and ending censorship, ending DEI programs, and many, many others. I would note that many of these limitations, by the way, were carried in the last two House passed, then called the State Foreign Operations Bills, and for really good reasons. I was pleased to see that President Trump embraced a lot of those policies through executive orders in the early days of his administration. And let's face it, it was no secret that the Biden administration was funding controversial, wasteful programs, and even programs that were actually harmful to our national security interests. And I sounded the alarm publicly and privately, and you all heard me do that. I raised it in every hearing. We debated extensively, frankly, during our markups, as I'm sure we will do so again today. But here's a sad reality, is that these funds were being used to fund drag shows, DEI hiring, and even labs of the Communist Chinese Party. I hope we can finally all agree now that these prohibitions are needed, or we frankly risk losing the American people's support for these important investments. You see, the American people must be reassured that funds in this bill will promote our national security and our interests. Throughout this process, the goal is to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars, to represent our constituents' priorities in foreign assistance, and above all, to protect the United States national security. This bill would not be what it is today without the valuable input from each member of this panel. Your thoughtful recommendations have shaped the measures before us, and I'm so grateful for your contributions. But now, before I close, I also want to thank the staff, the amazing staff on both sides of the aisle for their hard work. Let me just start by naming them by name. Subcommittee Clerk Susan Adams and her entire team, Craig Higgins, Kelly Alvarado, Jamie McCormick, Troy Hicks, John Muscolini, Gabriella Zack, and Aaron McMeniman. Aaron, I always butcher your name. Where are you? I always butcher your name, but I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. From my personal office, I want to thank Cesar Gonzalez. Mr. Chairman, you know he's kind of the memory of this committee. Giselle Reynolds, Autumn Early, and from the minority staff, I want to thank Aaron Kolodziejski, Lori Mignon, and Ed Etzkorn. Mr. Chairman, thank you. I look forward to the vigorous debate, and I yield back.